The Analogue Pocket, the long-awaited handheld console from Analogue, was announced back in 2020 during some really weird times, and after several delays, it was finally released to the first batch of pre-orders in December of 2021. You've seen some of the professional reviews out there. This is going to be my take on it as a non-pro YouTuber. So we'll take a look at all the features, what it can do, is it worth it, some pros and cons, gripes, things like that, and let's get started. So if you haven't guessed yet, we're going to take a look at the Analogue Pocket. Now, I know you guys have probably already seen all the professional reviews out there. I'm going to go ahead and put my take on it. We'll see what it comes with, which, if you look at the back of the box, it pretty much tells you, comes with a console and a USB-C cable. Now, again, I am not a pro reviewer, so bear with me here. Let's go ahead and open this up. Like all of Analogue's packaging, this one comes in black with the embossed kind of shiny logo, or in this case, product name. Everything else is just what it is. So now this does have a battery in it. This does not have any batteries. Almost the same weight. I'm pretty sure if I put batteries in here, they'd be about the same weight. So if you're worried about, extended play, I don't think you'd have to worry too much. Let's take a look at what else it comes with here. This little sleeve, which has an Analogue sticker and a quick start guide. It's no official manual or anything, although it's got that right there. So toss those to the side for now. And then, of course, the USB-C cable and a pack of silica gel. So the Pocket, it's modeled after the original DMG in terms of its form factor, although it does have 4 face buttons on there, directional pad, an analog button for home, and I'm guessing start and select. It also on the back here has L and R, similar to the Game Boy Advance SP. Battery is not removable in a traditional sense. You have to take the screws out to get to it, but as you might have seen in other videos, it is replaceable, which is nice. On the side here, we've got an SD card slot, as well as a speaker. Another speaker here, volume buttons, power button, and then on the bottom, headphone jack, USB-C, USB Type-C power cable, as well as for the dock, and a link port cable. Let's go ahead, we'll turn this on and see what it can do. All right, so we saw what comes in the box, which wasn't much as expected. Let's go ahead and turn it on and go through some of the options here. Now, disclaimer, I did update the firmware to the latest one as of the recording of this video anyway. So there may be some differences here that might not have existed with the initial firmware if you've watched anyone else's tutorial. So, and speaking of tutorials, they come with one here. So shows you how to maneuver through the menus. You pretty much just use these 2 buttons here. This brings up, I'm assuming, the system options. Telling you this is start and that's select. Yep. Volume control here on the side. And if you push them together, it mutes. And if you hold the analog button along with the volume buttons, you can adjust your brightness. This here is how you can cycle through different display modes, depending on which console you've got, scan lines, grid pattern, etc. So if you just push it once, it'll go to sleep. And if you hold it down, it'll turn on and or off. Of course, there's an end user license agreement, because there always is. And here's how to update the Analogue OS that's on here. So we've got play cartridge, tools, and settings. Not sure what these 2 options are here. Let's look at tools first. So under tools, you have Nano Loop, which I believe is the chiptune sequencer. Not too interested in that. GB Studio is game development mode. There is a separate FPGA inside here to assist with that. Again, not interested in that, so I'm not going to really cover those options. If you want to see those options, I would look up someone else's video or go to Analogue's website. They've got some tutorials up there. Settings is what I'm more interested in here. So we'll go to Systems. We got Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Gear. Out of the box, these are what are supported. Though for Game Gear, you need the adapter, which again, I don't have. You got your video options, audio, controls, hardware, and then you can reset them to default in case you screw something up. So you can do different display modes. Analog GB, I believe, is just black and white with no filters. DMG will give you that green color with a grid pattern. Game Boy Pocket would be more of a black and white. Original Light will be like a light blue, which is basically just Game Boy Pocket with a iridescent backlight. And then Pinball, Neon Matrix. We'll take a look at what those are when we get into a game. Here are the different color palettes. I'm assuming these have to do with the analog mode or perhaps that matrix mode, not sure. And custom, grayed out, could be because I don't have an SD card installed. We'll see. Frame blending, I believe. So because the original Game Boy had a poor screen in terms of refresh rate and everything, I believe that some developers used some tricks to give them to use that to their advantage. And I believe this can compensate for that since this is a much better screen with a higher refresh rate. And it can update the pixels on screen much more quickly. That probably compensates for it. And you also have size and position, which you can't seem to adjust. So audio, not worried about that. Controls, Super Game Boy. So what this does, by default, it's going to use this as B and this is A. Whereas on the Super Game Boy, this is B, this is A. And I believe that these are going to be a better option for me. So you have three options for Game Boy games: Auto Detect, Force Game Boy Mode, Force Game Boy Color. So there are some, well, quite a few actually, Game Boy Color games that can work on that regular Game Boy, just obviously without colors. And I believe that there are also a amount of Game Boy games that when you play them on a Game Boy Color will display a pseudo Game Boy Color type palette as if the game was released for the Game Boy Color. Normally if you plug a Game Boy game into a Game Boy Color, you get one of like 12 default palettes. But there were a select few games like Pokemon, for example, where Nintendo was able to actually put even more colors in than typical. So, and that's pretty much it for the Game Boy. And then the Pocket itself has its own display options, its own audio options, and there's a global reset which will reset this to factory defaults. And then you've got this option here where it'll either boot into Analog OS, or if there's a game in there, it'll just start playing your game just like it would on an original Game Boy or Game Gear. Quick Save, Quick Load, this is kind of a pseudo safe state option. It only works on one game, period. So if you have a save state for, let's say, Super Mario Land, and then you go and plunk in, I don't know, Donkey Kong Country, and use the save state, it will wipe out the save state for Donkey Kong, or for Super Mario Land. Something we're working on, we'll talk about that later as well. And then, of course, the About screen, which these are the fixes with the latest firmware. It came with a version 0.9 firmware, so updating the firmware got me to 1.0B. Hooray. Talk about that as well. So there's a user guide, which is available online only, and then you can go back to the tutorial again if you need to. Legal information, all the trademarks, etc., and user license agreement we already went through. Special thanks to these people here. And that's it. So let's go and play some games. Alright, so I'm going to start off with Donkey Kong Land. It's a Super Game Boy game, but it's also a Game Boy game. Doesn't have any special color palettes unless you're playing on a Super Game Boy. And by default, it does a dot matrix display, which is showing up kind of rainbow on camera. That's interesting. Almost like a holographic type display. Very interesting. Oop, and I died. All right, that seems to be better. And it seems to play the game just fine. Let me pause it real. Oh, that doesn't give me a lot to work with. Let me get to a safer spot. All right. So let's play with the... So there's the original DMG. There's Game Boy Pocket. Game Boy Pocket Lite, which Game Boy Light. And then there's that pinball neon matrix. And then you have the analog GB, which is just black and white with absolutely no filtering whatsoever. But I believe... So we can change them slightly. Which kind of gives Donkey Kong a brownish hue in this case, which is good since he's a gorilla, and then everything else keeps its kind of sort of snowy look. So kind of like a pseudo palette, but it's not quite the same that you would get on a Super Game Boy or a Game Boy Color. Oh, that didn't work out. There we go. But let me see. So Pinball Neon Matrix I think is only going to be red, but let's find out. Yeah, so that's only for... It's only going to be red. Maybe you can adjust it later. I'm not sure. I can't seem to find a way to do it here. So, but as you can see, it gives it a reddish hue. Let's quit out of that, and we'll try the next game. One thing I do like about the Pocket is that you can effectively hot swap games on the fly. Obviously, you have to quit the game first. One thing I do not like, though, is, I don't know if you can see these scratches. So the plastic is obviously soft enough that a cartridge is going to scuff it up. So if you don't like that, you may want to put some thin piece of film or something over this to protect it. For me, it's wear and tear. It's going to be inevitable. So, but we're going to do Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color. Error. Yep, just needed to clean the contacts off a bit. So before we go into gameplay, let's take a look at some of the display options we've got. So there's a grid mode and no grid, basically. The grid mode does kind of dull the colors out a bit. So you may want to leave it off, or if that's how you want to play, that's how you want to play. Ooh, there's some slowdown. Let me see if there were any other options. Let's just run this GBA. That's not going to help anything. Oh well. But as you can see, it plays Game Boy Color games just fine. Let's move on to Game Boy Advance. So for this test, we'll do Mario Kart Super Circuit. Fortunately, inserting the cartridges is scratching up the back of the shell, unfortunately. I don't think there's going to be much you can really do about that, but it did happen with the original Game Boy. But let's go ahead and try Mario Kart, which should just work fine. Oops. Slid right off. No. And seems to work just fine. So I'd love to demo the Game Gear functionality, but I don't have the adapter, so I can't. So what do I think of this thing? Well, I mean, it's a great clone handheld console, that's for sure. It has a beautiful screen. It sounds really well. The current set of features are a little lacking, but from what I understand, Analogue is still working on adding features and enhancing the Analogue OS, which I'm going to talk about right now. This system shipped with 0.9 of the Analogue OS, which to me is kind of ridiculous because it means it wasn't finished. That tells me that they rushed it out the door. Now I know there were several delays because of the global situation, part shortages, etc. So maybe they were getting antsy and figured, let's just push it out with what we've got. It can play games. At the very least, that's what most people are going to buy this for. And I can understand that from a business standpoint, but I also can't understand it from a business standpoint because you're effectively releasing an unfinished product. Now, you did see the firmware, it's up to 1.0b, so, you know, that's good, but it still is missing features that their other clone consoles, the Super NT, the Mega SG, etc., have, such as save states, cheat modes. So I'm a little disappointed. They had a lot of time to fine-tune the Analogue OS, but they didn't. And I'm almost wondering if early adopters of the Pocket aren't actually beta testers for the Analogue OS. Whether they port the Analogue OS to their other consoles, such as the Super NT or Mega SG, it's not known at this time. At least I don't have the information. But I still kind of find it odd that they would ship the system that way. I mean, they could have shipped it with the same type of interface operating system that the aforementioned Super NT and Mega SG had, and it would have been just fine. And then they could have updated this later. Maybe they couldn't, I'm not sure. I know that's kind of a small gripe, but it is something you might want to consider, because if they're willing to ship potentially an unfinished product, is that someone you want to give your money to right away? You may want to hold off maybe picking it up until they've got everything that they need to put in here, integrated. So the other gripe I guess I have now, although it doesn't affect me, is that they had to raise the price. Now I get it. Component shortages, everything went up, inflation. This Pocket cost me $200 plus shipping, and I think it was about $20 shipping. But as of December of 2021, the price was increased to $220 basically. Not sure if shipping was increased to or not. And speaking of shipping, the reason I don't have the Game Gear adapter is because although the adapter is $30, which I think is a very fair price, shipping it was $26, and I think that is very unfair. $5 for something that's effectively the size of a cartridge, maybe a little bit larger. $5 is a very good price to pay for shipping. If it was coming from overseas, I might even pay 10 or 15, but I'm not paying almost the full price of the adapter in shipping. I don't think it's fair. So unless that changes, I probably won't be picking up any other adapters, which is unfortunate because that was the main goal for this system. I wanted something that I could play Game Boy, Game Gear. I've never done Atari Lynx or Neo Geo Pocket, and I think that would have been awesome to try out. I did have a TurboGrafx 16 as a kid, although I only played a handful of games because it did not succeed here in North America. But because this can do the Turbo Duo at some point in the future, I'd be able to play TurboGrafx 16 again. So Analogue, I don't know if you're watching, you're probably not, but can you please figure out that shipping issue? Because I don't think that that's right. And there's only one shipping option. I think it was premium. There was no standard shipping. There wasn't a next day shipping option. It was just premium, and that was it. So I didn't pick up the dock either. Maybe I should have. Maybe I will still pick it up. We'll see. I mean, the dock itself for $100, I think is worth it. I don't know how much it is to ship. Hopefully it's not $100 or close to it. But yeah, so again, don't let those negatives deter you from maybe buying it. Although I would wait until they've got the firmware situation resolved and that they have all the features that they said they would have, the save states, cheats, etc. Now, whether or not you should buy one or not is going to be squarely up to you. If all you want to do is play Game Boy games, pick up a Game Boy Advance SP. If you can, the 101 model, just because of the fact that it'll do backlit display, it'll do the entire Game Boy library, and it'll cost significantly less than this does. It won't be as nice of a screen, but I don't think that is enough to justify the additional $100 or so you'll have to pay, or maybe even $150 that you would have to pay to get one of these over just the SP. Heck, even pick up a original Game Boy Advance, do a screen mod, and it'll still be cheaper than this is. However, if you want to play even Game Gear on here as well as Game Boy, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult to make the decision, because a working Game Gear is going to set you back quite a bit. If you're not familiar, most Game Gears out there need capacitors to be replaced. It's no question. If you pick up a Game Gear that hasn't already been worked on, you will have to replace the capacitors. If they haven't already leaked yet, they're going to leak anytime, and it will cause a lot of damage. I'm still working on my Game Gear, trying to get that one working and get the capacitors fixed and everything, because it's a big pain in the butt. So you have to factor that in. And then you still have to deal with the poor display that Sega chose and the poor sound. Modding a Game Gear with a more modern display is not cheap and will get you into the territory of a Game Boy Pocket. So in that situation, pick up the Pocket and the Game Gear adapter, provided that they're not going to charge you a bunch of money on shipping either. But go with that option instead. And then, of course, if you want to do the Lynx or the Turbo Express, I believe those also have bad capacitor and poor displays, so it can get really expensive. We'll see if, like I said, if I do get those adapters or not, though. So again, if you just want to play Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games, pick up an SP or pick up an original GBA and mod it, and you'll still save money over this. If you want to do anything above that, or if you're really interested in the game development aspect of this or the chiptune sequencer, pick up one of these. So, but that's what I think about this. That's my review. Hopefully you guys found it insightful. I know it's not a professional review, but let's be honest, most of us are not pros. We're just avid gamers, retro gamer enthusiasts, and I kind of figured you would want to see things from our perspective. But if you like this video, hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so, although there's never any obligation. I do appreciate it though. If you didn't like this video, hit the thumbs down, but please leave a comment below as to why, so I can try to use that to help this channel going forward. Oh, and if you picked one of these up and the Game Gear adapter, let me know if you paid a lot for shipping or not. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's fine, but if you do feel comfortable, put down how much you paid for shipping. I want to see if anyone else has a similar experience. Otherwise, that's it for this video. Thanks all. I'll catch you later.